Here now is your final lesson. Do not commit the crime for which you now serve the sentence. God said, vengeance is mine.
I don't believe in God.
It doesn't matter. He believes in you.
We're so glad you're here. We're so glad you're here. We're so glad that you're here. Are you? Because it doesn't really sound like you are. Hey, congratulations. Your life begins right now. For a very brief and peaceful moment, every preconceived notion you have about your life and your future is wiped clean as you take your first breath of fresh air outside from the comfort and security you've been surrounded by into the unknown. And it won't be long before this unknown becomes distorted and influenced by someone else's interpretation of what it all means, as they make every attempt to distract you from whatever motivated, and let's call it pure, mission you might believe you're on with their hidden agendas. As pessimistic as this reality sounds, the intent is not to discourage you from the journey, but to inspire you to think for yourself along the way. Because the welcome message congratulating you for making it this far sounds like the banal platitude you hear from the door greeter at church telling you, "We're so glad you're here." It's not that they don't mean it, it's just what they're programmed to say, the same way we tell people to have a nice day as they leave. But what you'll soon learn is that the platitudes we express in our everyday routine are about as truthful as our conditioned response to stress as we convey to the world that everything will be fine, when we know with absolute certainty that we have no idea. And as you breathe in that fresh air, believing that you have your entire life in front of you, with that youthful enthusiasm, you won't realize for years that those same hidden agendas distorting your perception of the world weren't actually inherently malicious. They were, however, formative in your understanding of how this world works. And as this happens more and more often, you'll awake one day trying to rediscover yourself or have a greater sense of life, only to be met by the confines of the four walls that society has enclosed you in. From the propaganda of advertising to the artificial energy surrounding social conditioning and the picture people paint of themselves and their lives, we are met with this specific understanding when we start to recognize that it's a box surrounding our lives. This painful, alarming, albeit truthful discovery arrives as we approach the intersection of experiencing that other people's version of the world doesn't have to be ours, and that taking advice from someone we wouldn't ask for it doesn't have to have the same impact on us the way that we say it does. And as this happens, please take into account that everyone and their agendas pursuing your attention are the same as we are. Influenced by the need to earn a living, struggling with something they feel too embarrassed or too uncomfortable to share, searching for meaning, for purpose, for joy and excitement, as they at all costs avoid the pain of who they've become and are unable to recover from, while seeking some sort of momentary pleasure, not realizing that no amount of that pursuit of that pleasure can outrun their pain. Lately, I've been contemplating an idea I've recently come across as I think of what and how to say what I want to convey throughout this speech. It's the concept of keeping God at the forefront of our thoughts as a means of caring for our soul. And as I ponder that wisdom, I can't help but think of how impactful that advice may have been 20 years ago, before I was ever presented an echo chamber of like-minded, one-dimensional ideologies, boxing me in, thinking all the while that it was keeping me safe, while it was actually harboring my ability to think for myself, leading me to yet another platitude, one that reminds us that life is what you make it, And if you invite yourself or allow yourself to be influenced or persuaded or convinced otherwise, it's not what you make it. It's what someone else has instilled in you. So as you take those first steps, consider the air you're breathing, consider the size of the box you're putting yourself into, and make the conscious decision to be influenced not by earthly wisdom of man, but by something more significant than that, because you are not alone. You have to share this air with others, and as you get older and wiser, your senses will weaken, and at the same time, for some strange reason, you'll be able to see clearer than you ever have. And the more equipped you are to handle the distortion of the world through its influence, the better you will be able to greet it with the same phrase, "We're so glad you're here." Your life, the life as you know it now, will eventually become complicated. It'll become cumbersome. It'll become difficult. And most likely is going to become routine. You undoubtedly will be faced with just as much discouragement and disbelief and comparison and complacency as you do excitement. And when you find yourself at your very, very lowest, I'm talking absolute lowest, as long as you remember that you can keep God at the forefront of your thoughts, you'll be able to, at the very least, be able to remind yourself that God does, in fact, still believe in you, even when you don't.